Hey guys. I need to get this off my chest. I never thought I'd end up back in her world. Not after everything. Not after the divorce. Not after 15 years of silence. But then the phone rang, one of those calls that punches you in the gut before you even say hello. And just like that, I was standing in my tiny kitchen, knees weak, staring out the window while my neighbor screamed about her flooded begonias. Vanessa Hartley was dead. My ex-wife. The woman I'd loved, lost, and tried for over a decade to forget. She was gone. And even stranger, I was invited to her funeral. Not just that, I was told I was named in her will. My first reaction wasn't shock. It was confusion. Because Vanessa had gone on to build something massive, a multi-million-dollar consulting firm, a sprawling estate, the kind of legacy that ends up in glossy magazine profiles. I was just Alan. A retired power grid technician with a busted sprinkler and a rusted-out Civic. And yet, there I was, being told by some poised-sounding assistant named Claire from Crowley and Pierce LLP that Vanessa wanted me present. Not optional. Not ceremonial. Present. I hung up the phone and just sat. The air felt too still. The coffee I'd spilled earlier had dried into a sticky brown ring on the floor. I stared at it for too long, like maybe if I scrubbed it away, I could also erase the part of my past that involved Vanessa Hartley, the woman I had once sworn I'd love forever. We met in the late 80s, back when I still had hair and the world still made sense. She wasn't called Vanessa Hartley back then. Just Vanessa. I saw her the first time in a rundown diner on a snowy night, lighting up the place with her righteous fury as she tore into a manager about sexist hiring practices. She was magnetic. Loud. Unapologetic. I didn't know it yet, but that woman would become my whole world. I remember the sound of her laugh during our first dinner, sharp, real, full of momentum. And when she said yes to my proposal at the same counter where we first met, I thought the rest of my life had just fallen perfectly into place. We had a son, Nathan. He was beautiful, strong lungs, stubborn like his mother. And for a few golden years, we were good. Really good. But even then, I could see the cracks forming. Vanessa was always looking ahead. While I found peace in the present, fixing things, showing up for school plays, cooking dinner, she was chasing more. More money. More power. More influence. And slowly, she pulled away. From me. From Nathan. From the life we built. By the time she founded her company, Hartley Consulting Group, I was already an afterthought in our own home. Her eyes were always on her laptop, her schedule, the next acquisition. Family became a performance, neatly staged dinners, glossy holiday photos, and behind it all, the hollow sound of silence growing louder. We divorced in 2010. It was clean, on paper. She kept the company, the money, most of the assets. I got the old house on Alder Creek Road, and Nathan's loyalty went with her. Not that I blamed him. She could sell anything, even a version of the truth. I hadn't spoken to either of them in years. So why now? Why was I being summoned? The next 3 days were a blur. I ironed a suit I hadn't worn since my cousin's funeral, scrubbed my bathroom twice, practiced what I might say if anyone spoke to me. But no words came that felt real. Or safe. Friday arrived cold and gray, like some cosmic joke. I pulled up to Fairview Chapel in my 15-year-old Honda, parking between two black Teslas. I might as well have shown up on a bicycle. The chapel was packed. At least 200 people in tailored black, whispering softly about legacy, power, Vanessa's rise to the top. I recognized a few faces from long-forgotten galas I'd been dragged to. Most had no idea who I was. A few did. And the way they looked at me? Like I was some relic from a life Vanessa had outgrown. I was heading for a back pew when I heard it, my name. Well, not my name. Just one word, sharp as a blade. Dad. I turned. And there he was. Nathan. 37 years old, power-wrapped in a navy suit, face carved from his mother's bone structure. His voice didn't tremble. His glare didn't soften. "What are you doing here?" And just like that, I knew I had made a mistake. If you've ever gone through something like this, drop a comment. I'm listening. Okay, deep breath. Let me tell you everything. I hadn't seen my son Nathan in nearly a decade, but his eyes still held that same look he'd worn at 17, the one that said I was a disappointment, a burden, a man who didn't belong in the world Vanessa had built. "I came to pay my respects," I said, quietly, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "I was invited." Nathan looked around, like I was contaminating the space just by standing in it. "You lost the right to be here the day you walked out." "I didn't walk out," I said, though we both knew it didn't matter now. "I was asked to come." "The lawyer. She wouldn't have wanted you here." "Maybe not. But I had to be." I couldn't explain it, but something inside me refused to back away. There were at least 200 people watching us by then, their whispering hush louder than any shout. I could feel them scanning me, scanning my suit that was 10 years out of style, my shoes worn at the heel, my face tired and out of place. I didn't fit in this room. Not anymore. But still, I stayed. "I'm not here to make a scene," I said. "I'll sit in the back." Quiet. Nathan shook his head and laughed, dry and mean. "You embarrassed her enough while she was alive. Don't ruin her funeral too." I stared at him, unsure whether to feel hurt or angry. Probably both. But instead of answering, I sat down, hands folded in my lap. And that must have unsettled him, because he turned to the crowd like a courtroom prosecutor. "For those of you who don't know," he said, voice rising, "this is my father. The man who spent 2 decades trying to keep my mother small, while she was out building an empire." I felt the heat rush up my neck, but I didn't move. My fingers curled into fists against my knees. "He took half in the divorce, then disappeared for 15 years while she worked herself into the ground. And now he shows up? Pretending to mourn?" More nods from the audience. More sideways glances. Every part of me wanted to stand up and defend myself, to explain the late nights, the loneliness, the fights about time and money and Nathan's future, but what would have been the point? No one here wanted to hear my side. "I'm not here for sympathy," I said quietly. "I'm here because I loved her. Even when it was hard." For a moment, he just stared. Then he scoffed and stormed down the aisle toward the front pew, leaving me in the back row with 24 memories and a heart that felt like it was caving in on itself. The service started 5 minutes later. Eulogies. Praise. Photos of Vanessa looking powerful and polished, speaking on stages, signing contracts, shaking hands with governors. I watched as strangers spoke about her brilliance, her fearlessness, her legacy. No one mentioned her marriage. No one mentioned me. Which was fair, I suppose. She'd written me out of her story a long time ago. After the service ended, I stood up slowly, hoping to slip out before anyone else noticed me again. But just as I reached for my coat, a voice stopped me. "Mr. Reed?" A man in an immaculate suit approached, briefcase in hand. Mid-50s, maybe. Smart eyes. Smooth tone. Michael Crowley. Vanessa's attorney. I blinked. "Oh. Yes. I spoke to someone from your office earlier." He nodded. "Claire. She told me you agreed to attend the reading. I appreciate that. It'll be quick." "I don't think I'm really needed," I said, suddenly desperate to leave. "It's probably just a formality." "Actually," he said, glancing over his shoulder toward the chapel's side door, your presence is required. Vanessa was very clear about that. And then, as if summoned by the discomfort itself, Nathan appeared again. Is this really necessary? He asked Michael. I mean, come on. He's not family. Michael gave him a professional smile, the kind that said he'd dealt with wealthier, colder men than Nathan before breakfast. I'm afraid it is. Both of you are listed in the will. And both of you must be present for it to be read. Nathan exhaled sharply, annoyed but resigned. Fine. Let's get it over with. We walked 3 blocks in silence. The spring air was damp and heavy. I trailed behind them, part of me still unsure if this was some elaborate misunderstanding. Some cruel joke. Maybe she'd left me an old photo or a signed copy of our divorce papers as a reminder of what I'd thrown away. But as we stepped into the law office, a beautiful, restored Victorian house with leather chairs and polished wood, I felt something shift. The air buzzed like static. We sat in front of a long mahogany desk, Nathan closest to Michael, me just to the side. The sun streamed through the windows, catching the dust in the air. I sat very still. Michael opened a thick folder and cleared his throat. This is the last will and testament of Vanessa Hartley, executed on June 4, 2024, and witnessed under the laws of the state of Oregon. Nathan leaned forward, confident. I stayed still, waiting to be told I was owed nothing. But then, it began. To my beloved son, Nathan Reed, Michael read, I leave the residence at 981 Copperidge Lane, along with its contents, and the sum of $500,000 from my personal investment account. Nathan nodded, barely hiding his smirk. That house alone was worth 7 figures. He leaned back, arms folded. But, Michael continued, these assets are contingent upon Nathan's continued employment with Hartley Consulting Group for a minimum of 2 years, or until the company is sold. Nathan stiffened. What do you mean, sold? Who would sell the company? Michael didn't answer that right away. He turned to the next page. And the air in the room changed. My stomach dropped before I even heard the words. There was more. Much more. And it had my name on it. Michael turned the page slowly, deliberately. Like he already knew what was about to happen, knew how it would blow our lives apart. To my former husband, Alan Reed, he said, lifting his reading glasses, I leave the sum of $33,500,000, to be transferred from my primary investment and securities portfolio. Silence. Total, absolute silence. I blinked once. Twice. My ears rang like I just walked into an explosion. Sorry, what? I asked. My voice sounded thin and distant. Did you say, 33 million? Nathan didn't move. He just stared straight ahead, unmoving, expression unreadable. But his right hand twitched. A barely there spasm of disbelief. Michael nodded calmly. $33.5 million. And that's not all. Of course it wasn't. I could feel the ground slipping out from under me. Additionally, he said, Mr. Reed is to receive controlling interest in Hartley Consulting Group and its affiliated entities. This includes all subsidiary firms, real estate holdings, intellectual property, and a 65% share of all corporate assets. Effective immediately, he will serve as chairman of the board. I couldn't breathe. My mouth had gone dry. I looked around the room as if someone would stand up and yell, "Gotcha." But all I saw was Nathan. Frozen in place. This had to be some kind of mistake. There's no way, I whispered. I haven't seen Vanessa in 15 years. I didn't even know she was sick. She wasn't, Michael replied. Your ex-wife was in perfect health when these documents were prepared. They were executed after she passed multiple legal and psychological evaluations. She was entirely of sound mind. Nathan stood up so fast his chair slammed against the wall. No, he snapped. No, 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 this is wrong. This is not what she wanted. You expect me to believe she just handed over her company, her life's work, to the man who couldn't even hold a proper job? He was shouting now. Red-faced. Shaking. This is fraud. He manipulated her. He found her when she was vulnerable. I didn't, I said quietly. I didn't even know she passed away until Claire called me. Liar, he barked. You must have gotten to her. You played her. No one gives away $34 million to their ex-husband unless they've been conned or coerced. Michael's voice cut clean through the chaos. Mr. Reed, Nathan, I need you to calm down. He pointed a trembling finger at me. You don't deserve any of this. You weren't there. You didn't build anything. You were a ghost for half her life. I just stared at him. My own shock was so deep I couldn't even defend myself. The number alone, 33 million, was too big to comprehend. Like someone had handed me the moon and said, "Good luck." Nathan turned on Michael. I want a full audit. I want to see the paperwork. I want a list of every call they made. Every email. Every doctor she saw. Because I swear to God, this is not real. Michael set the will down slowly. It is real. I oversaw every part of the process personally. Your mother made these choices deliberately and with full understanding of the consequences. Nathan let out a bitter laugh. You mean betrayal? That's what you call this? 30 years of loyalty thrown in the trash for what? For a man who couldn't stomach a successful woman? Something inside me cracked at that. Maybe I couldn't keep up, I said. Maybe I wasn't the man she needed. But I never asked for this, Nathan. Never. I came here today thinking she'd left me nothing. Oh, please, he spat. You act like this is some burden. Don't pretend you didn't dream about this day, getting your hands on everything she built while you sat around fixing sprinklers. His words stung. But more than that, they revealed something I hadn't seen before. He wasn't just angry. He was wounded. Betrayed. Not just by Vanessa's decision, but by the fact that she hadn't even warned him. Why would she do this? He whispered finally. Why would she cut me out like this? Michael hesitated. Then he reached into the folder and pulled out a separate envelope. She left a personal message, he said. For both of you. She asked me to read it after the will. Nathan stared at the envelope like it might catch fire in Michael's hand. No. No, she doesn't get to explain this. She doesn't get to disappear and drop this bomb and then have the last word. You can leave if you prefer, Michael said gently. But I'm reading it either way. I stayed seated, heart pounding. Because as shocked and overwhelmed as I felt, there was something inside me, something I hadn't felt in years. A flicker of hope. Maybe even forgiveness. Michael opened the envelope carefully. Pulled out a letter in Vanessa's elegant handwriting. He cleared his throat and began. My dearest Alan, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone, and you're probably sitting in Michael's office wondering if the world's gone insane. I can picture your face, half confused, half trying not to look surprised. Let me put it plainly, this was not a mistake. You deserve every cent. And I'm going to tell you why. I froze. The weight of her voice, even secondhand, was immediate. Familiar. Painful. And real. Michael looked at both of us. I'll continue, he said softly. And he began to read the letter that would change everything. Michael's voice was steady, but something in it trembled, like he knew what this letter would do to both of us. I never stopped loving you, Alan. Not during our worst fights. Not during the divorce. Not during the 15 stubborn, pride-filled years we spent in silence. I know you're probably shaking your head, thinking I'm full of it. But it's the truth. And this letter is me owning what I couldn't say out loud while I was alive. I couldn't breathe. Michael paused, maybe to give us space to catch up, but there was no catching up to that. Those words detonated something inside me. I wanted to scream. To cry. To ask her why she waited until she was gone to say it. But instead, I just sat there, mouth shut, jaw tight, holding on to the arms of the chair like it might keep me from unraveling. You tried, Alan. I know that now. You wanted a home, a life, a family. You wanted simplicity, connection, joy. And I wanted more. Always more. And when you couldn't chase the same things I did, I told myself you were weak. I was wrong. Michael looked at me, but I couldn't meet his eyes. You asked me to slow down. You begged me to remember the people I loved instead of the deals I was making. But I couldn't. I was too proud to admit I was afraid of stillness. Afraid of not becoming someone. Nathan sat frozen, his jaw clenched so hard I thought it might crack. His hands curled into fists in his lap. I saw a vein twitch in his neck. Nathan, Michael continued, and now even my son flinched. My beautiful, brilliant boy. I know you're angry right now. Maybe even destroyed. I raised you to be strong, smart, strategic, but I also failed you in ways I didn't realize until too late. I raised you to chase power. I should have raised you to understand people. Especially your father. Nathan looked like he might break the chair apart. He shook his head, barely audible, no, no, no. You were born into privilege I never had, and you used it well. But sweetheart, you've never built something of your own. You've only ever lived inside what I made for you. That's not your fault, but it's why I couldn't leave you the whole empire. Not yet. She had carved the knife clean through him. You've spent so many years resenting your father for his stillness. But that stillness is strength. He showed up for us when I didn't. He held the house together when I was chasing boardrooms and magazine spreads. And when I pushed him away, he let go with grace. Not bitterness. Not revenge. Grace. I couldn't take it anymore. I looked at Nathan, and for the first time since he was a child, I saw the boy inside the man. Lost. Hurt. Small in a way he hadn't allowed himself to be in decades. This isn't punishment, Nathan, Michael read, voice softening. This is love. I left you the house and the money because I want you to build something on your own, something that doesn't belong to me. I want you to find out who you are without being my shadow. And Alan. My throat tightened so hard I thought I'd choke. I'm giving you my company, my fortune, my legacy, not because you wanted it. But because you never asked. Because I trust that you'll use it to serve people, not control them. To build with intention, not just ambition. You always understood what mattered, even when I didn't. Nathan suddenly stood and backed away, his face red and shaking. This is bullsh*T, he snapped. This is emotional manipulation. A last-minute rewrite while she was losing her mind. Michael closed the letter gently. She wasn't. I can show you the documentation. Multiple evaluations. She was more lucid than ever when she finalized this. Nathan paced the room like a caged animal. She hated him. For years. She used to call him an anchor. She said he held her back. I swallowed hard. Maybe I did. Maybe she hated that part of me. But maybe she needed it, too. Nathan's eyes met mine, full of fire. You think you won? You think this makes you some kind of hero? No, I said. It makes me responsible. He stared at me, breathing hard, chest rising and falling like he'd just run a mile. His anger was still there, but it was losing direction. Fading into confusion. Pain. I don't want a damn house, he said. I don't want a consolation prize. It's not a prize, I said gently. It's a chance. He picked up his coat with shaking hands. This isn't over. I'll fight this. I'll challenge the will. I'll prove she was manipulated. Michael sighed, calm as ever. You're welcome to try. But the law is airtight on this. She left no cracks. Not one. Nathan stood at the door for a long moment, his hand on the knob. His shoulders slumped, just a little. And then he turned back. You're not my father, he said. Not anymore. And with that, he walked out. The door clicked closed behind him. The silence that followed was deeper than anything I'd ever felt. Michael stood. I'm sorry, Alan. That couldn't have been easy. I nodded, still frozen. She really did love you, he added. She talked about you all the time. I stared at the envelope in his hands. Can I keep it? He handed it to me. She wanted you to. I took it with shaking fingers, holding her handwriting like a fragile piece of the past. My hands didn't stop trembling. Because somehow, after everything, Vanessa had left me more than money. She left me grace. And a second chance. Michael began gathering the scattered documents into a neat stack as I sat there, still holding the letter like it might dissolve if I let go. Everything about the room felt heavier now, the air, the silence, the weight of what I'd just inherited. Not just the money or the company, but her memory. Her voice. Her regrets. Vanessa Hartley had been gone less than a week, and somehow, she'd left me more than she ever gave while she was alive. Alan, Michael said gently, you don't need to make any decisions today. We'll start slow. The management team will help guide you through the transition. You won't be alone. I looked up at him, the words echoing louder than he probably intended. I wouldn't be alone. I'd spent so many years believing that I was, that I'd failed as a husband, as a father, as a man. I'd taken the quiet life, the modest retirement, the absence of my son's voice, as confirmation that I didn't matter. That I never had. And now? Now, I was supposed to run a company worth hundreds of millions. Lead people. Make decisions. Carry forward the legacy of a woman I once thought I'd lost forever. How do I even begin? I asked quietly, more to myself than anyone else. Michael smiled, kind but firm. You start by showing up. That's all she ever wanted from anyone. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Eventually, I left the office, stepping back into the cool afternoon light of Springvale. The clouds were breaking, streaks of blue peeking through a long stretch of gray. I walked without purpose, letting the wind carry me past the coffee shops and old storefronts where I'd once walked hand in hand with Vanessa, before we became two different languages in the same home. I thought about Nathan. About the way his voice cracked when he said, "Why would she do this to me?" I didn't have an answer. Not really. But I understood now that it wasn't about what she did to him, it was what she hoped he'd do with what was left. The house. The $500,000. The silence she left behind. He'd have to face his own reflection one day, just like I did. I pulled the letter from my coat pocket and read the final line again. Use this well, Alan. Not to win. Not to prove anything. Just to live like you always did, with integrity. That's worth more than any fortune. For the first time in years, I believed that maybe, just maybe, she was right. It's been a few weeks now since that day in the lawyer's office, and I still wake up wondering if it really happened. The money, the business, the letter, it all feels like something from someone else's life. Someone more important. More equipped. But then I remember Vanessa's words. Her trust. Her final act wasn't about riches, it was about restoration. She gave me more than her assets. She gave me back my own worth. I've since met with the team at the company. They were surprised, of course. But welcoming. Many of them remembered me from the early days, when I'd drop by the office with coffee or pick up Vanessa from late meetings. They called me the quiet one, but they remembered. That matters. I've started small, learning, listening. I still wear the same old watch and drive the same beat-up Honda. But when I walk into those meetings, I try to carry something new. Not power. Not pride. Just presence. Just purpose. As for Nathan, he hasn't called. I don't expect him to. Not yet. But I haven't changed my number. Maybe one day, when the anger burns itself out and the silence becomes too loud to ignore, he'll reach out. Or maybe he won't. Either way, I'll be here. There's no manual for redemption. No perfect script. Just choices. And grace. And the hope that doing the right thing, quietly, steadily, even when no one's watching, is enough. Vanessa saw that in me at the very end. And now, I'm learning to see it in myself.